when this whole thing got started, we're talking now late 1800s, basically Pasteur and Koch and a few other people said every disease has to be correlated with one microorganism. And at the time, before electron microscopes, they could only see, they only had a light microscope, so they could see bacteria. So they found certain diseases like anthrax, where they found a bacteria. Now, interestingly, they didn't find it in everybody with anthrax, which is odd, because if anthrax was caused by a bacteria, you would think everybody would have it. Number two, they could find a lot of people who had the bacteria in their tissues who were totally fine. Anyways, so they had a bunch of illnesses which they could see a bacteria, and then they had illnesses, and in particular polio, where they couldn't find a bacteria, right? No bacteria, they know they're sick, they seem to be happening in communities, therefore it must be some pathogen smaller than a bacteria which we can't see. That's the thinking. So they called it a virus, meaning that's the old Latin word for poison. So there was some smaller than a bacteria, we can't see it, and that must be what's causing all these people to be sick in situations where we can't find a bacteria. So how do we prove it? Well, we take tissue from somebody with polio and we grind it up, and sometimes they would filter it, so they would take the supernate, the liquid part, and they would expose it to different animals. And they tried about 20 different animals. And then you find something very interesting. The trouble with determining that polio was a virus was they couldn't find an animal model. In other words, they couldn't find an animal that got sick from the virus. Now think about that for a minute. So they get stuff from somebody with polio. They try guinea pigs and hamsters and monkeys and rats and mice and gerbils and everything. None of them got sick. So some people would say, that means the thing doesn't make you sick. What they said was, there's no animal model for that virus. And so there was no tissue model. They hadn't discovered how to make Vero cells sick yet. There's no tissue model. There's no animal model. So how do we know that it's making anybody sick? Well, because a bunch of people in the same place get sick. So that must mean it's a virus. So then they said, well, we can try one more time. So they took a child who had polio. They took some of their spinal tissue, ground it up in some water, filtered it so that they got rid of the cellular stuff. So they have just basically ground up liquid diseased spinal cord, right? That's not a virus. That's a whole lot of things. And they got 2 monkeys, they drilled a hole in the monkey's brain, injected I don't know how much of this goop into the monkey's brain. One monkey died and the other got paralyzed. They hold the monkey up and say, see, we've transmitted the virus to the monkey. Now, as I've said, the only thing I can say for sure is that if you're a monkey and somebody wants to inject diseased spinal cord directly into your brain, your best bet is to run. Because it's a good chance that nothing good will come out of that. And in fact, there's such a thing as called brainstem herniation, which means if you inject stuff into your brain, the brainstem herniates down and gets stuck in the bony hole, and then you die. So you would think that if you're going to inject like a half a cup of diseased brains, spinal cord into somebody's brain, you would do a half a cup of saline or milk or something to see maybe it's because of the injection of stuff into a monkey's brain. But they didn't do that. They didn't do any controls. They just said that 1907 was the proof that polio is caused by a virus. And you read that and you think, what the heck? like, like, that's not, that's just nuts.